Today, we're diving into a really cool concept in psychopharmacology, all inspired by Dr. Hozayfa Hammam's work on what's called the dose-response spectrum. Let's jump right in. So here's a question that can seem like a total riddle. Have you ever heard of a low dose of a medication being used for sleep, but then a doctor prescribes a high dose of the exact same pill for depression, saying it'll actually be energizing? How in the world is that even possible? And this quote right here. This is the key to the entire puzzle. We have to stop thinking about these medications like they're simple hammers, just whacking a problem. They're way more like complex musical instruments. And the dose, that's how you control the tune it plays.
All right, so let's really dig into how this single instrument can play so many completely different songs. This is the absolute crucial point. We can't just slap a label on a drug and call it a sedative or an antidepressant and be done with it. Its identity, what it's actually for, is completely tied to the dose. It's a fundamental shift in how we need to think about this stuff.
And that brings us to the main event, the dose-response spectrum. Here's an easy way to think about it. As you turn up the dose, the drug doesn't just work harder at the same job. No, it actually starts unlocking totally different doors in the brain. Each new door it opens creates brand new effects.
Okay, so that's the theory. But what does this look like in the real world? Let's check out a couple of common medications to see it in action. First up, we've got mirtazapine. Now don't worry about trying to read every little thing on this chart. It all boils down to one fascinating paradox. At a low dose, this stuff is one of the most sleepy-making drugs you can find. But crank up the dose, and it can actually become activating. Wild, right?
So what's the secret? This slide breaks it down perfectly. At a low dose, mirtazapine is pretty much just a powerful antihistamine. It hits that H1 receptor hard, and that's what makes you so drowsy. But as you push the dose higher, it starts to hit new targets. Specifically, it revs up norepinephrine. You can think of that as one of the brain's main wake up and pay attention signals. And this effect is so strong it actually overpowers the sedation, making the drug more activating and a great tool for depression. It's like having two totally different drugs packed into one pill.
And if you thought mirtazapine was interesting, get a load of Quetiapine. Again, don't sweat the details on the chart. The big story here is that this single drug doesn't just have two identities, it has at least three. And it all depends on the dose. This just lays out the journey beautifully. At a really low dose, say 25 to 50 milligrams, it's basically acting like an antihistamine again, often used for sleep. Push it up to the middle range, around 300 milligrams, and the stuff your body breaks it down into becomes a really effective antidepressant. But you have to go way higher, up to 400 to 800 milligrams, before it finally starts blocking enough dopamine receptors to work as a true antipsychotic. A sedative, an antidepressant, and an antipsychotic, all the same drug. Incredible.
Now, this isn't just a weird quirk of a few specific medications. This principle is actually a huge deal across mental health treatment.
Seriously, this is a fundamental rule of the game. For any clinician, understanding this dose-response spectrum is everything. It's not just about getting the drug to work. It's about navigating that super fine line between a helpful effect and a harmful one.
Now let's switch gears and look at a mood stabilizer like lithium. The principle is a little different here. As you can see, it's not about the drug changing its whole personality. Instead, it's all about finding this incredibly narrow window where it works. Go a little too low, nothing happens. Go just a tiny bit too high, and it can become toxic. So with lithium, playing the instrument is all about precision, not transformation.
And when we talk about antipsychotics, there's another level of precision we have to talk about. Their effectiveness really depends on hitting a specific target, something called the D2 occupancy threshold.
And here's that magic number. Based on years and years of brain scan studies, you need to block between 65 and 80% of the brain's D2 receptors. If you go below that sweet spot, the medication probably won't work. But if you go above 80%, the risk of some really serious motor side effects like tremors and stiffness just shoots through the roof. It is a true pharmacological tightrope walk. So we've seen how a dose can completely transform a drug, or create a tiny window of safety, or demand hitting a super precise target. So what's the big picture here? What does this all mean?
This quote just says it all, doesn't it? Understanding this stuff changes prescribing from just guesswork, from trial and error, into something much more like a precise science. It lets a doctor say, okay, this person needs help with sleep, so I need the antihistamine effect of a low dose. Or they need the antidepressant effect, so I'm going to push that dose higher. It's about being a master locksmith who knows exactly which key fits which lock.
So why does all this matter?
Well, for starters, it totally throws out that old, simplistic idea of a magic pill. It also explains why sometimes side effects can just pop up or even vanish when a dose changes. But most importantly, it gives clinicians the power to fine-tune treatments for each individual person. It really paves the way for a future of truly personalized precision medicine. Which leaves us with this final thought to chew on. If we accept that these drugs aren't just hammers, but are in fact complex instruments, then maybe the whole future of medicine is about learning how to be the perfect composer, learning to write a unique and perfectly harmonized prescription score for every single unique brain out there.